Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Alan Lee Phillips? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background of this case, then I'll move to my analysis. On January 6, 1982, 21-year-old Annette Schnee went hitchhiking near Breckenridge, Colorado. Annette had a job cleaning rooms at a hotel in the day and worked as a waitress at a bar at night. She had stopped by a pharmacy in Breckenridge to pick up a prescription and wanted to get back to her residence, which was south of Blue River. She was last seen at around 4:45 p.m. She never made it home. Annette's body was found face down in Sacramento Creek in Park County, Colorado, about 6 months later, on July 3, 1982. She had been shot in the back and died from bleeding out. Now, on the same night that Annette disappeared, 29-year-old Barbara Oberholzer also went hitchhiking in the area. She went by the name Bobby Joe. That evening, she was in a bar celebrating a recent job promotion. She had been promoted from secretary to office manager. She had left the bar at 7:50 p.m. with the intent of traveling to her residence in Alma, Colorado. Her friends offered her a ride, but she decided to hitchhike. Bobby Joe's body was found the next day below Hoosier Pass, which is about 11 miles away from Breckenridge. She had been shot twice in the chest. She also died from blood loss. 2 18-inch zip ties were found around one of her wrists. The police believe the murder weapon was either a .38 caliber revolver or a .357 Magnum revolver. It is not known at the time who committed the murders, but the state of Colorado now alleges it was a mechanic named Alan Lee Phillips, who was 30 years old at the time. On the same day that the women went missing, January 6, 1982, Alan had a bit of an adventure that became well known. Alan Lee Phillips was driving during a snowstorm in Clear Creek County, Colorado. He was familiar with this area because he lived in Georgetown, which was in the county. Alan was attempting to drive through an area called Guanella Pass in the Rocky Mountains when his pickup truck became stuck in a snowdrift. This pass is about an hour and 20 minutes west of Denver and about an hour and 35 minutes northeast of Breckenridge. In a straight line, Breckenridge is actually closer, but there is no direct route to get to the pass. Alan started walking to a nearby ski area. After just 600 feet, he turned around and walked back to his truck. It was about negative 20 degrees outside. He could not tolerate the cold. He decided to use his headlights to display Morse code for SOS to catch the attention of an aircraft that was passing overhead. The aircraft was a United Airlines flight from Denver to Colorado. A sheriff from Jefferson County, Colorado, happened to see the SOS signal from his seat on the plane and alerted the flight crew. The flight crew radioed the Federal Aviation Administration, who directed 2 smaller planes to pinpoint the location of the flashing headlights. A local fire department responded within 15 minutes and rescued Alan. He had a large bruise on one side of his face and was intoxicated, but otherwise he was in good shape. Alan was questioned as to why he tried to drive through the pass during a snowstorm at night. He said that he was intoxicated and was trying to drive home. He thought it was a good idea to drive through the pass. When questioned about the bruise on his face, he explained that he pulled his truck over so he could urinate, but the snow slammed into his face and he hit his head on a corner of his truck. The authorities were not sure what to make of Alan's story. They probably figured his bad decision could be attributed to intoxication. The murders of Annette and Bobby Joe went unsolved for many years. In 1998, investigators tested blood found on various items tied to the crime for DNA and determined it belonged to an unknown male. They tried to identify the donor, but there were no matches in the database. In early 2021, genetic genealogy narrowed down the suspects to about 12,000 people. The police were eventually able to narrow down the list to one, Alan Lee Phillips. At this time, Alan was 70 years old, a father of 3, and still lived in Clear Creek County. The police were able to obtain his DNA after he threw away a paper napkin from a fast food restaurant in the trash at a post office. Just one more way that fast food can be dangerous. Alan was arrested during a traffic stop on February 24, 2021, and charged with murder with deliberation, assault with a deadly weapon, and kidnapping. At the time making this video, Alan Lee Phillips is awaiting trial. Now moving to my analysis. In the area where Annette and Bobby Joe lived, hitchhiking was not uncommon. It is reported that Bobby Joe had a few rules for hitchhiking, including not getting into a van or a vehicle with two men. The behavior of the women on the night they disappeared was not out of character. The investigation that started after the disappearances of Annette and Bobby Joe was initially focused on Bobby Joe, because her body was discovered the day after she disappeared. Evidence from Bobby Joe's murder was recovered in many different locations. Among the recovered items were her backpack, a glove, a tissue, her driver's license, her keys, and an orange sock. The sock did not belong to her. The backpack, glove, and tissue were found between where her body was recovered and where Alan Phillips was rescued. Her driver's license was found even closer to where Alan was stuck in the snow and along the route, again, from where her body was located to that location where Alan was. It appears as though after killing her, the attacker simply threw her property out of the window at various locations. When Annette's body was found in July, she was fully clothed, but her clothing was in disarray, like she had dressed in a hurry. She was wearing one orange sock, but the other one was missing. It matched the orange sock found near Bobby Joe's body. It was fairly clear to investigators that the two murders were connected even before this discovery, but now they were certain. On Annette's body, the police found a business card that belonged to Jeff Oberholzer, Bobby Joe's husband. He initially denied knowing Annette, but later admitted that he did give her the business card. He had picked her up hitchhiking one time, but he said he never had contact with her again. Jeff became a suspect in the murders. Jeff said that he was visiting a friend on the night of the murders. The friend eventually came forward and confirmed he was with Jeff that night, but the times did not match up. Jeff was eventually excluded as a suspect when the investigators discovered that his DNA did not match the evidence connected with the crimes. Moving to the next question, was Alan Lee Phillips guilty? Of course, at the time of making this video, he is presumed innocent. Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Alan is guilty, starting with the inculpatory evidence. Alan's DNA was recovered from multiple items connected to the crime. According to prosecutors, only 1 in several trillion people would be a match for this DNA profile. Alan was rescued from a mountain pass on the night the murders took place, not far from where they occurred. Locals did not try to make it through that pass in the winter. This was well known. He did not have a good reason for being there. Moving to the exculpatory evidence, Bobby Joe's husband was at one time a suspect, although again he was excluded by DNA evidence. There were no witnesses to the crime. The murder weapon was never recovered. No physical evidence other than the DNA connects Alan to the crimes. Do I believe that Alan Lee Phillips is guilty? Based on the available evidence at this time, I do think he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's hard to argue with the DNA evidence, but we will have to wait and see what the outcome of the trial is. Here's what I think happened. This is just a theory, just my opinion. Alan picked up Annette, drove her to a remote area, and committed an assault of a sexual nature. After the attack, she dressed herself quickly. This explains why her clothes were in disarray and why she was missing that one orange sock. Alan either kicked her out of his truck or she escaped. He shot her once in the back and left her for dead. Alan's desires were not satisfied. Therefore, he drove back to Breckenridge to find another victim. He picked up Bobby Joe and drove to a remote area. He tried to restrain her with zip ties, but she escaped from his vehicle. Perhaps this is when the orange sock fell out of the truck, or maybe Alan simply threw it out of his vehicle at that time. Alan shot her twice and left her for dead. For whatever reason, Alan decided to drive through a dangerous mountain pass, Maybe he thought that would reduce his chances of being spotted, like no one else was going to be on that pass when he was there. After his truck became stuck in the snow, he realized it was too cold to walk away. At this point, he could have waited to the morning and tried again. He had warm clothes with him, and presumably there was fuel in his truck. Instead, he decided to try to signal a passing aircraft. Amazingly, this plan worked. There are so many low-probability events in this case that occurred. It's really amazing. Just to name a few, a man allegedly kills 2 hitchhikers on the same night. He does very little to get away with this crime, like he didn't do a good job of destroying evidence. He left blood behind, and neither victim was dead when he drove away. He was in a remote area, but still someone could have found them, and in theory, if they received medical attention quickly, they could have survived. He then decides to take a dangerous route home. Most killers would not do this. After getting stuck, he signals an airplane instead of trying to maintain a low profile. Incredibly, there's a man on the plane who recognizes the SOS signal and alerts the flight crew. So Alan drove on the pass to avoid being seen and ended up deliberately attracting the attention of a person on an aircraft. To me, this is the most unlikely occurrence in this whole story. How many times have people looked out of the windows of airplanes and seen flashing lights of various types? Of those instances, how many times has that event been actionable? Like when a passenger could actually do something with the information that was meaningful. The chances of all these events occurring in one night must be 1 in several trillion, just like the chances that someone other than Alan Lee Phillips contributed the DNA found on the evidence. I think the irony in this case is that Alan Phillips allegedly shot 2 people and was okay leaving them in the snow to die a horrible death, but was so intolerant of the cold himself, he gave away his identity instead of trying to save himself. He destroyed any chance of establishing an alibi and sealed his own fate. His rescue would come quickly, but justice would take 39 years to arrive. Those are my thoughts on the case of Alan Lee Phillips. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis on this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.